culture and connecting to different countries. Let's look at the first slide. Does anybody recognize any of these three characters? No? Well, I can guarantee that you're going to know a lot more than just these three characters at the end of this talk. Many Mandarin characters are phonetic, which means they originate from pictures of or images of everyday things that you see around you. Let's look at the first Mandarin character. It's that of how. To understand it better, let's divide it into two parts, the left side and the right side. The left side is that of a woman, and that's clearly visible in this character. The right side is that of a male child. Now, in agrarian economies like India and China, we know that if a woman has a male child, it's considered good. And therefore, similarly, in India and China, when a woman has a male child, this character is called how or good. Let's look at the second Mandarin character. This is the character for an. It's again a woman. Above her is a roof. A woman under a roof, what does that symbolize? Any ideas? Stability or safety. And that's why this Mandarin character means an or safety or protection in Mandarin. It's amazing, isn't it, how the two cultures, as diverse as we are yet so similar. It's because India and China have shared a very similar and intrinsic history, and our cultures have intermingled over several thousand years, which is why Indians and Chinese intrinsically understand each other. It is also why it was intuitive for you to understand these two Mandarin characters. Let's put this theory into play. Let's look at the third Mandarin character. This is the character for jia. It's that of a pig under a roof. As Indians, understanding Chinese thought processes, what would you think a pig under a roof would symbolize? Money, prosperity. Think back to agrarian economies where cattle or the pig was considered as cattle, right? Where would you put your wealth? We didn't have banks. We didn't have fancy investment options. In farms, or where did farmers live? In houses, right? Therefore, this Mandarin character is that of a house, or jia in Mandarin. Now that we learned the character for how, one of the first few things that we teach when we teach Mandarin is ni hao. And I'm sure many of you have already heard this, right? It means hello in Mandarin. And because we've already taught you the meaning of how, we're now going to understand the meaning behind ni. Because we have similar cultures between India and China, we share the same respect for elders. And this is why Indians and Chinese have special words for when we want to address people older than us, those that we want to give respect to, our fathers, our bosses, professors. In Hindi, we say aap, and in Mandarin, we say nin, right? Similarly, when we want to talk to our friends or colleagues, we use the word tum. It's similar to the Mandarin pronunciation of ni. Now that you've understood ni and how, you've understood how to say hello in Mandarin. You've also understood how to put the characters together to form what we call an intrinsic understanding between India and China. It's not only in characters or pronunciation that Indians and Chinese understand each other better. It's also in Hindi. Hindi is a highly phonetic language, and Mandarin being difficult or slightly harder to pronounce, when we use Hindi to pronounce Mandarin characters, it becomes a lot easier for our students. It's also a lot simpler because it's coming from a language that you already intuitively understand, and therefore Mandarin doesn't seem as daunting anymore. This is opposed to if I was to take English, right? English gives you limited phonetics. Take for example, if I was to use the Hindi t, th or t. English cannot give me any of these sounds with a T or a TH, right? Let's take another example. If I was to look at the X in Mandarin and I told you it was unlike the Z in xylophone, but more like the sh in sheep, you as Indians might intuitively get this, but it might be a little harder for you to apply. But if I told you it was more like the sh in shanti, this would be a lot easier for you to apply as Indians because you'd remember it and intuitively you would know it. As another example, let's look at the Q. And I told you it was unlike the K in queen, but more like the ch in chhatri or chata. As Indians, you would understand this a lot better and it would be much easier for you to apply. Should we test this theory? Let's look at the next slide. Can any one of you pronounce these characters? The first one is she, she. Does anybody know what that means? Thank you. The next one. Shun, right? It's a lot easier for you to pronounce as Indians because you intuitively understand that it's the sh for shanti. If we look at the next one and we remember that the Q was more like the ch, how would we pronounce the next one? Ting. And the last one? Exactly. So it's not that difficult to learn Mandarin, is it? It's quite simple. Now that we've understood how to pronounce Mandarin, we've understood how the characters work and how similar Mandarin or Chinese culture is to our own Indian culture. There's another example. Here's one with numbers. We're all familiar with the Hindi 420 or 420. If I told you it was similar to the Mandarin 250 or Arbai Wusher, you would immediately and intuitively understand the meaning if I called you a 250 in Mandarin, right? This is because you understand the cultural nuances behind calling somebody a 420 in Hindi. Similarly, it's against this that the Western culture does not really get these Mandarin or Hindi definitions, and which is why it's harder to explain the concepts to a foreigner. Because India and China understand each other, I've given you about 2 or 3 different examples, and I've shown you how the two countries are so similar, and we can understand these cultures because they're linked to our language. It's because we can understand each other through our own perspectives, therefore, that we should understand each other better. We should look at each other through our own similarities, try to find connections between India and China. Because when we understand each other, it's that we trust each other. And when we trust each other, we build better bilateral ties between the two countries. In conclusion, I would like to say, unlike in the West, where we say goodbye, in Hindi and in Mandarin, we say I'll see you again. It's always fir milenge or zaijian, which means I'll see you again. And therefore, this isn't goodbye, but it's fir milenge or zaijian. Thank you.